On the last day of July, Hitler makes a decision. An attempt must be made, he orders, to invade England on September the 15th. First, Hitler demands complete mastery of the air. Goering, very sure of himself, has replied, "Certainly, just give me 5 days of good weather." Everything is worked out to the smallest detail. Under German occupation, the pound will be worth 9 marks 60. On the 1st of August, Hitler issues a directive.
In order to establish conditions for the final conquest of England, the German Air Force is to overcome the British Air Force with all means at its disposal.
The Luftwaffe has its objective. It sets out to destroy the Royal Air Force. The aerodromes in the south of England are to be the first target. The Luftwaffe in these early weeks shows its strength to entice the British fighters into battle. The Royal Air Force learns the art of air defense by trial and error. These first battles are the baptism of fire for many of the young British pilots, and there are pitifully few of them to take on Goering's armada. They are about 20 years old, and during the next summer months, they will save Europe. It is the time when most of them should be on their vacation from Oxford or Cambridge. One of them, Richard Hillary, is shot down and terribly burned. He recovers only to be shot down again and killed. Before his death, he writes a book, The Last Enemy, in which he describes his generation.
We were united by a common delight in friendship, sport, literature, and idle pleasure. We had a deep suspicion of organized emotion and patriotism. We were spoilt, cynical, and conceited. The press called us the lost generation, and we were not displeased. The one thing we hoped for when war came was a chance to fight with the maximum of freedom and the minimum of discipline. We were selfish and egocentric, without any real purpose in life. The war would give us one in a delightfully palatable form. It demanded no heroics, but gave us the opportunity to demonstrate in action our hatred of mass hysteria, an opportunity to prove to ourselves and the world that however undisciplined we were, we could deal with the fanatical Hitler youth. Most of us, for purely selfish reasons, were glad that the war had come. It solved all the problems of a career. As fighter pilots, we hoped for a concentration of amusement, fear, and exaltation, which would be impossible to experience in any other form of existence.
Fighter command constantly demands more pilots. Training is speeded up. A few sessions of ground instruction and then into the air in dual-controlled aircraft. Men cannot be replaced as quickly as machines. The training of fighter pilots could take longer than Britain might last in the war. The young pilots experience the intoxication of flying alone above the clouds. 10 hours of solo flying, then they join operational squadrons. The rest they will have to learn in combat. These young men will suffer fatigue, depression and fear, but they will find comfort in comradeship. One of them, a pilot who commanded a squadron during the Battle of Britain and shot down the first German plane over England, has never forgotten the men with whom he shared those grim days of war in the crucial summer months of 1940. Group Captain Peter Townsend.
I was about 24 years old. My friends, my companions were about anything between 19 and 23, 24, but I was the oldest, and I was even what you might call a veteran, because I began my career in the Air Force in 1935. Therefore, I had had approximately 5 years of experience. The young people in my squadron, they had the most tremendous esprit de corps, a wonderful spirit. Some of them were really frighteningly young. They had very little experience on the service type, the Hurricane. I remember we received a draft of about 10 young men, boys, some of them even in their teens, and they had about 10 hours experience in Hurricanes, which meant that as soon as they came to my squadron, we had to get busy. Fortunately, it was the summer, long days, and we had to train them in formation flying, in aerobatics, in air firing, and generally in maneuvering the airplane and getting used to it and being able to put it and fly it as they wanted to.
The one remaining and persistent problem is that of pilots. The Royal Air Force welcomes pilots from the Commonwealth, volunteers from America, pilots from Holland, Czechoslovakia, and all parts of Europe. It welcomes all men who wish to join the RAF in battle. 12 French pilots take part in the Battle of Britain. To start with, they are posted to Squadron 615, the Churchill Squadron. Of the 12, only 2 will survive. Colonel Lafont and Captain Perrin. Together, they return to their old base at North Holt. They were the first of the French pilots to reach England. Today, they still have the right to wear the pilot's brevet of the Royal Air Force. We asked them to describe their life in those days, 27 years ago.
We lived either in houses in the immediate vicinity of the base or behind the officers' mess in little huts, which are still there today, still in use. There was never any suggestion of discipline. We were given complete freedom. We were pilots. They accepted that we were doing our job conscientiously, and they left us alone to go our own sweet way.
We had only one aim in life, to hunt down the Boche. We had a deep feeling of hatred for him. We could never forget that just across the channel he was living in our country, and we were determined to kick him out.
The Poles are the most numerous. 135 of their pilots are banded together to form Polish squadrons. Colonel Zumbach fought in Poland and in France before he came to England. He arrived with a score of 18 planes to his credit.
The first difficulty we ran into was the difficulty of the language. None of us, or almost none of us, could speak English. English lessons were organized for us, but they only lasted for about 3 days. There was so little time to start. We were taught a few important words that were vital for pilots to know, such as turn to the left, turn to the right, go up, come down, and land.
Good morning. Good morning. Good evening. Good evening.
We shocked the English with our ruthless attitude toward the enemy. They couldn't understand at all why we were less sporting than they were. We had suffered badly in the early stages of the war. The German to us was a very real enemy. First we had been thrown out of Poland, then we had been pushed out of France, so in England we felt that this was our last chance. We had to stay put and fight to the bitter end.
It is early August. Goering comes to Paris to the Luftwaffe headquarters at the Ritz Hotel. Goering, who allowed himself 5 days to finish off the English fighter command, begins to realize that it's going to take him a little longer. He plans a new offensive. The date and time is fixed, the 13th of August at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Goering christens the day himself. He calls it Der Adlertag, Eagle Day. This is to be the decisive blow. 900 bombers are in a state of alert. For the Luftwaffe, this is the day which will see the beginning of the end of Britain and her obstinate war. Goering, superbly confident as ever, makes another of his bold statements.
The Luftwaffe has attained achievements which will live on forever through the ages. The Luftwaffe will contribute to the highest degree towards the defeat and complete annihilation of the enemy.